The decision could have an impact on how companies treat many of their employees, both gay and heterosexual. Bloomberg's Jeff Green has been looking into that side of the story. And Jeff, you could argue that corporate culture has been shifting in this direction already, making it possible for couples that are in same-sex marriages or relationships to have health care benefits and other insurance coverage through their spouse or their partner.
Right, about 94, 95, maybe even higher than that % of companies offer the benefit to same-sex couples who are domestic partners who up to this point obviously couldn't be married couples. The interesting thing is many of those companies may drop that benefit for domestic partner couples, and now that they can be married.
In other words, that the companies would insist that they be married in order to qualify for these benefits.
Yeah, the way the numbers break down, it's like 90-some % are for same-sex couples, and only 62% include opposite-sex couples. And in the survey that was done by the group that represents all the ERISA people, it looked at it was about 20% said they would probably drop domestic partner benefits for same-sex couples once this ruling came by. This was just in the last week.
So this is a cost issue for them in terms of finding any way they can to reduce their expenses for people who are not direct employees.
Yeah, and it's not just cost. I mean, the idea is that it's complexity. To give same-sex benefits, there's a lot of stuff they do that they have to do administratively to kind of true this all up to make it the same. The real problem for the gay couples may come in by saying that they're married. They open themselves up to discrimination because while it's legal to be married now in all 50 states, it's not legal to be gay in all 50 states. You can discriminate against people because they're gay. I mean, I guess it's legal to be gay, but they can discriminate against you legally still in more than 20 states. So by having a certificate that says I'm married and I'm gay, somebody can say, well, fine, then you can't rent an apartment from me, things like that.
Jeff, which kinds of companies or what kinds of companies in which industries have been reluctant to offer benefits to same-sex couples?
Unfortunately, they don't break it out in a way that you can tell which industries it is. It does tend to be coastal, is more support in the coastal areas than in the middle of the country, kind of how you might expect it. This also becomes an issue, and the bigger companies are more supportive than the small companies because the bigger companies recognize these people have to go across borders. They're negotiating, trying to get talent from all over the world, and that is another issue. If you want to send your company or your employees overseas, and now they have a record of being in a gay marriage, it's still illegal to be gay in many countries where we do a lot of business. Up till now, there's kind of been a wink-nod kind of thing where you would list your family if you were gay as household staff. If you also have a record of being married to one of them, that becomes a lot more difficult.
Jeff, does this also create legal responsibilities that may not have existed before for people that would become married?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that this plays into in terms of divorce. A domestic partner arrangement didn't necessarily give you the same rights to the estate if you ended it, where being married will obviously, create a lot of legal entanglements that didn't exist. There's tax implications. There's lots of implications that come into this. I mean, now you're married. It's all the same stuff that regular married couples in the same-sex situation have to, or different opposite sex have to deal with, are now going to be something you have to think about. The same reasons maybe some people who don't get married who are heterosexual now apply to gay couples.
Jeff, hold on for a second because we want to show you a tweet that Hillary Clinton just tweeted out in response to the Supreme Court decision. The Democratic presidential nominee tweeting out, proud to celebrate a historic victory for marriage equality and the courage, and she continues to say, and determination of LGBT Americans who made it possible. H. So Hillary Clinton coming out in support of the Supreme Court decision here.
Phil, I want to bring in Bloomberg's Phil Mattingly, who's been tracking this decision. And Phil, now that Hillary Clinton has gone to the public airwaves with her comments, obviously we're going to wait for Republican challengers to offer theirs. So what can we expect?
Look, Pam, I think again, this is a difficult issue for them in general because you look at the nationwide polling. And again, think about it, look at it from this perspective, guys. This is 11 years since the first state legalized same-sex marriage. Over the course of 11 years, the public opinion shift on this has been stunning. There's really no other way to put it. And from a perspective of social change, I don't know that you've ever seen something change this quickly in this transformative of a way. That said, Republicans on this issue, particularly as they look at a primary in the competitive primary where conservatives just don't agree with this in any way, shape, or form, are not going to get too far out in front. They're not going to make some big grand statement accepting the Supreme Court ruling. What you're largely going to hear from them is opposition to how this came down, continued opposition to same-sex marriage, but possibly some massaging the language of the Supreme Court has spoken. It's time to move on. I think that is probably as far out as you're going to see somebody get. I think we also just got a tweet from President Obama who said, quote, today is a big step forward in our march towards equality. An interesting point there, Pim. President Obama, when he ran for election in 2008, was against same-sex marriage. He has, as he quoted himself, evolved on the issue over the time period. So has Hillary Clinton. So underscoring the way this change has occurred in such a quick fashion when our current president, who is now trumpeting this case and this victory for equality, first set foot in office, he did not believe that this was the pathway to go, at least publicly, and now he does. And I think, guys, what I've heard from the White House this morning is there's a pretty good chance we'll probably hear from him publicly about this before he heads down to Charleston to eulogize one of the victims of the shooting, the nine that were killed in the shooting just last week.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to say that the president was opportunistic in how he changed his view, or at least declared outright his support for gay marriage. I do want to bring in some context to the Supreme Court decision. As we mentioned, as Pim mentioned, it was a 5-4 decision here with Justice Anthony Kennedy writing the majority statement that announced everything. Let's give you the quote here that he wrote. Justice Anthony Kennedy, in joining the court's 4 Democratic appointees in the majority, said, "No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family." Jeff Green, over to you. We were talking earlier about how many companies had moved ahead of this because the tide of public opinion has changed so much, and they were making allowances for same-sex couples when it comes to benefits, healthcare benefits, retirement benefits, all that. Can you contrast that with how the federal government and other state employees are treated?
Well, the federal government, that was where we had the previous Supreme Court decision. I can't say state by state how this plays out. I mean, obviously it had been legal in at least more than half the states already, so this is more kind of bringing the rest of the country in line. The fact that the companies are behind this is actually the key thing here. The companies have been a big part in pushing everybody towards this equality discussion. And that's sort of the expectation now, that this is going to set up the companies to get behind a push to now go to the states where you can still legally discriminate against people for their sexuality and get those laws changed. So that's sort of the next frontier for companies in this, is these people have a great infrastructure. The LGBT group now has a great infrastructure in place and a lot of companies on board, and companies are really being pressured to show their support. So the next sort of frontier in all this will be to get the states that don't currently allow people to be gay without fear of discrimination to get in line with the marriage decision.
Jeff, does this also affect tax filing, something as prosaic as sending your money to the government?
Good question.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly, if you get married and, the limit for a single person is $200, the limit for a married couple is $250, and then you go up a tax bracket. If you take 2 people who make $200,000 and put them together, now you make $400, you just jumped a tax bracket. The marriage tax applies to everyone who gets married. It's all that kind of stuff. But I don't think many people are going to look at this as a, as a defeat because they have to file different taxes. But that's the kind of considerations. They can still file single. It's just those sort of things that come into it.